okay. I have Stacey Wright from MUFON. How are you doing, Stacey?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Good. Go ahead and, explain who you are, your background, and we'll move from there.
Okay, great. Well, I'm the state director for MUFON here in Arizona, and I'm also the director for our local chapter here, which is Phoenix MUFON. And Phoenix MUFON has the high standing of one of the best chapters of MUFON right now, so we're very proud of that. We've worked hard to get it up there, and we have a lot of fun doing what we're doing.
Excellent. And you also have the lights, the big event that took place there.
Oh, we do, yes. Still listed as the biggest mass sighting around. So, yeah, it's great stuff. Yes,
as you learn more about me as time goes, I know very little. I was fascinated by UFOs in my youth. Somewhere my teens lost it, rekindled again when the military got involved. So a lot of these things that are well known to the many, I'm learning about them currently, and they're fascinating. Specifically,
there's a lot of fascination to the subject. I mean, we've got people who have been involved with it from, say, their early military days all the way up to some newbies coming into the scene right now. A lot of millennials are really getting involved with it, and people are bright, man. They know their stuff. We think we're going to be teaching them a few things when we go to lecture, say, at some of the community colleges or something like that, and boy, these kids are on it. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, especially now with technology, it's instant.
Right.
Nothing's being shared via a scheduled TV show. There is no newspaper. It's instant information. So
it is,
and it's great. So I don't know if you heard about some of the theories I have regarding the gray aliens and some of their purpose here on Earth.
Do tell.
This is theory. I believe them to be advanced robots with the consciousness uploaded and/or a really advanced AI. And I think we're under a long-term study, just based on what I've seen and what I've read and what I'm learning. They're watching our military, the infrastructure. We're definitely under a long study. And in a previous podcast, I stated to someone, I say this a lot. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but if we get people constantly compare us to ants in regards to a higher intelligence, and I always stated if we ever saw ants using combustion engine cars or flying around or throwing bombs at one another in an organized fashion, we'd close the park off and study that indefinitely because we'd want to see how that would unfold. We'd want to see the evolution of that.
Right. No, I agree. I remember Michio Kaku stating that same thing 7 or 8 years ago and stating, think about when you walk along the sidewalk and you see this very orderly bunch of ants cruising along, one behind each other. It's like they're on an expressway, but they got stuff to do and they're doing it and they are very efficient. And we just watch them and we think, oh, those are just ants. And we step on them or we hit them with a magnifying glass or we do all those things that we did as kids, and we don't really think about the intelligence behind that order.
Right.
So, I think a lot of advanced species out there could be looking at us in the same way. I've often thought that, and I agree with that theory. Anything's possible. But I also think true that we have been being monitored, watched closely from some off-world technology, more something like the fish and game department.
Right.
I mean, what we do with our, animal species here on the planet, we watch them, we monitor them, we catch them, we tag them, we test them, we set them loose again, and we check back up on them a little bit later. So that sounds very, very similar to some of the things that are being done with some of the beings that we would call the aliens out there. So there's not much difference, I don't think.
Right. If you were walking around your backyard and you saw, let's say hypothetically you have a big backyard and you walk up and you see a little structure and it's emitting smoke and you come to discover that's their energy source. They're making energy for their colony. It's both dangerous and interesting. We would monitor it for two reasons. One, what could they possibly do with that kind of power? And two, let's see how they evolve with it. Where do they go from here?
Right. Let's see how they do. Yeah.
Right. It's funny. There's this an artist from the 90s, Perry Farrell, and he has a song called Pets. And the song is basically stating that we're going to make great pets for a greater being one day. It's if you ever get the opportunity to listen to that song, it's kind of clever.
And that artist was Harry Farrell?
Perry Farrell of Jane's Addiction.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain that it's the name of the band he did that with was Porno for Pyros, and it's called Pets.
Okay, I'll have to take a listen. Yeah,
it's actually pretty. When you listen to it, it's remarkably done. It's very clever, So, and he's a very intelligent guy, Perry Farrell.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a listen. Thanks.
So, in your experiences so far, what are you coming across the most? Like what the largest reports?
Oh wow! Arizona, we're a hot spot for pretty much everything. I was just looking over some of our reports today. We get about 360 to 400 reports a year here just in the state of Arizona. So we're averaging, one a day. So it's a busy bunch of field investigators we've got here. I think we've got about 22 or 23 field investigators on our team right now. But we're seeing a real variety of things. There have been a lot of reports. We still get people seeing stuff looking south from Phoenix down into the Berry Goldwater Range down in that area. We still see a lot of things that we know now are illumination flares. Okay, but they're really cool to see and they're very exciting. We see a lot of that kind of stuff. Lights in the sky is a biggie, but then we are seeing these orbs. And there's a lot of orbs that are kind of an orange amberish color and some that are bluish colors that go not too high off the ground. These things are cruising through trees, they're cruising through people's houses. We're seeing a lot of orbs. And we see a little bit of everything though. People are still reporting in triangles, we see rectangular craft, we see boomerang shaped things. We still have a lot of reports of things that are very similar to what you would say a Phoenix Lights type of sighting.
Yeah.
But a little bit of everything, really. It's crazy variety out there.
Well, again, I said this in a previous podcast with one of your fellow MUFON members, and it's like our cars. We don't have every car has a model, and there's going to be a new model. Every model has its purpose. Buses, vans, cars. They don't all serve the same purpose. So it could be a higher intelligence, whether it be an uploaded consciousness from somewhere, or if it's advanced AI, are going to recognize they're going to need certain vehicles to perform certain tasks. Right.
And some of these just seem so completely not aerodynamic, and that's the crazy thing, because they certainly are. They have no resistance through the atmosphere. They just cruise through. So there's a lot of these things that people are seeing now and across the country, not just in Arizona, but seem to be these cube shapes, these box shaped things. So you think, well, how can that thing fly? You want something that looks like a flying saucer or something boomerang shaped or something that can really cruise by. But we're seeing a lot of, these box shaped things, these cubes, and they just don't make a lot of sense. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that shape being a sleek, cool aircraft.
Right. But that's to our understanding of aviation now.
Yeah.
And I always make room for this, because whenever I hear these descriptions, people are like, oh, that's nonsense. It's far-fetched. How do we know it's not their drone? I mean, that could be the thing that they sent out ahead of the main craft.
Right.
Like when an example would be when we're in Mars right now, we have drones out there, right? And then even here, like right now in state of Florida, there's a manhunt. I don't know if you're aware of it. For this guy, I don't want to get into the story of that, but in long story, they're sending drones out with IR attached. And so when you're seeing these cubes, and I've heard these cubes, I've multiple times in different shows and different things I've read, every time I hear it, what comes to mind is they're smaller drones. They're out there to, kind of look ahead of where the main is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, anything's possible. That's the thing that's so fun about this subject right now, is that we've had so much witness testimony describing so many different variations that really anything is possible.
That's right. I always compare things to our military, for practical use. What we have in our military, different vehicles, what their purposes are. And I was just recently discussing this too. Like, the thing the Tic Tac that David Fravor discussed. And that's enormous right now. But if you look back in time, from what I'm reading, it even stems back to even during the Wild West, they described a cigar-shaped vehicle. Right. That sounds like that's right on.
Like Corona, Texas, or something like that. Yeah, they had blimp-shaped things going on.
So yeah, historically speaking, there is a consistency there. And then when people are like, "Well, there's no consistency," well, they have new models. Like I said this before too. If you have a Toyota Corolla since from the 90s and you want a newer car, you're not going to go to a brand new 92. You're going to get this year's car, and it's going to look completely different.
Right.
So I make room for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So in Arizona, there's a pattern too, by the way. I've been noticing. I don't know if you see the patterns in reports and the different documentaries, but there's like this pattern that goes from left to right with the United States. And it appears to be that they'll see something on California's coast. Somewhere later on, there'll be more activity in the middle of the country. And then off the coast of Florida and other, East Coast, there's an activity. And it seems to be...
Really? I have not noticed that. That's interesting.
I've been paying attention to it. I've noticed that whenever there's reports, and I always look at the year they're discussing this pattern goes almost left to right, it seems like. But predominantly, where military activity is where they are. And,
right. Yeah.
And that speaks volumes because again, back to the ants, if we saw them flying planes around there killing each other, let's see how they're operating these and how are they making them and do they pose a threat to us at some point?
Yeah.
So,
right. Oh, I know.
In your cases that you've come across, and I'm not going to use, I'll call them the experienced, right? I said this before too. I hate saying abductee. It sounds like a victim. In people that are experienced, when you're interviewing them and you're trying to learn more about their case, what's the consistencies that you're getting there?
Well, it's not hardware. Okay, when I say hardware, I mean something that you're seeing the physical craft. When you're talking about a lot of the abductees, they're not seeing a lot of hardware. They're having psychological effects. They're having experiences that you would think is more of an inner thing going on. Very personal, very, sometimes scary, but very personal. And they're not seeing a lot of craft. They're just, they've got the feelings, they've got the perceptions of things. They come away with different thoughts and visions and feelings from stuff. So, when I think of the experiencers, I don't think of them as having a lot of experiences with craft. Even if you look at someone, say, let's look at the Travis Walton case. He had experience with both. He had the hardware and what I might refer to as the software. He knows that he was aboard a craft. He was feeling it. He cruised around it for a while. He came out a door of it and out onto the ground. But then he also had a lot of transformation going on inside him as well. So that's the software part of things.
Right. His story in particular, I recently saw him on a couple of podcasts and interviews, and it's pretty consistent what he's saying.
Oh, it is. He's so consistent. That's what makes him such a cool guy. Is I've been listening to Travis for years, and I've seen him speak, 50 times. Seriously. He doesn't change his story. His story is true to the end. And when you're talking to him before the meeting, after the lecture, whatever, and listening to the guts of the lecture, this guy is not lying. You know this about Travis. It's very salt of the earth, sincere, and you just feel it. So, yeah.
I want to reach out to him and interview him, but I don't want to go down the path of his experience. He could reference, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to reach out to probably Bob Lazar for the same way. I don't want them to, I would like them to reference their experience, but more speak about what they're thinking and what their theories are. Because I've never seen any of them speak about what they believe is going on or what's going to be. Leave science aside, leave the experience aside. Because Travis especially, he's had an experience, and I don't know that I've ever heard him say what he thinks is going on, as opposed to what he went through, right? He did.
He'll allude to the fact that he believes it was an ambulance call. He doesn't say he was abducted. He knows that he was hurt accidentally in his encounter, and he was brought aboard a craft and saved. It was an ambulance call. And that's really cool to think about that. He was not harmed. I think that Travis was, in a lot of ways, enhanced during his experience.
Yeah, I watched the movie Fire in the Sky when I was a kid,
Oh, yeah.
That scared me.
Oh, it's a horror flick. I mean, they took a perfectly great story and they turned that thing every which way but loose, and it turned into just a horror flick.
Yeah, he said that in an interview that they fabricated that pretty nasty.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Because in that movie, he says he looks at the. I want to say the alien says, "Oh, it's a suit." Like this revelation. It was a suit. And as a kid, I adopted that because of that movie. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense why they all look the same, and you can't distinct them from one another. And then you grow up and you start viewing things differently. And then I have this thing with logic. I have to think logically. And I've heard in other podcasts. I'm going to reference Lex Friedman again. That someone on the show said it would take 10,000 generations and a very large ship packed with resources to travel just the galaxy, right? And then, so that's what came into my idea of them being, robotic. And because if you're robotic and you have a consciousness upload, you're immortal. You do what you want forever as long as you want.
Yeah.
But his story, very interesting story because, like you're right, they took him, and it's like they, I never looked at that perspective, and maybe I didn't hear him say it, but yeah, it seems like more feasible of what took place than rather in comparison to the movie anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I mean, if you listen to Travis, and you should interview him, he is a great interview. I mean, he just is. He can talk, and he's very eloquent when he talks.
I'll have to go through the right channels to find him. I'm just starting out. Yeah, if you could, you know my info.
I'll give you all his info tonight. How's that?
Perfect.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's actually going to go camping with us here in about 2 weeks. Every year we have the Phoenix MUFON's annual Camp Out and Skywatch going on up here in our high country. And Travis joins us every year up there. It's really fun. He joins us up there. We're really only about maybe 20 miles as the crow flies from where he had his experience back in 1975. So it's some really high country. There's a lot of weirdness up there, Bigfoot country. And so, yeah, Travis joins us up there. We usually have 25 or 30 of our Phoenix MUFON peeps up there, and we do a lot of fun and music. And he always brings his guitar, and we sit around the campfire and listen to the elk bugle and have a wonderful 3 days up there. So,
excellent. Yeah, you see, I'm building a network, Stacey, right? I tell everyone, especially MUFON people and the paranormals I speak to, eventually, somewhere here in the near future, probably about a year, I have a camera. I'm going to go do a documentary. I'm going to find a map, and I want to go to the spots. I'm going to do.
I'll tell you what. Next October, you join us on our camp out. How does that sound?
You believe me? I'm gonna. I have to see. I've never seen anything.
We've got our state officials there. We've got our field investigators there. We've got some newbies there. We've always got Travis Walton there. We usually have the Navajo Rangers with us as well. And we bring telescopes, and we just have a great time up there. You would have an interviewing, you would have a cornucopia of stuff going on there.
Awesome. So I have the equipment. Everything I have is for a mobile purpose, right? Even when I'm talking to him right now, it's a studio put together, but I could pack it up. And I did that intentionally because I want to get out there and document. I personally, I've never seen anything other. I said it before in another podcast. I've seen one orb, blue to aqua in color, but it was a thunderstorm, and it was absorbed by the thunderstorm. And so I'm left to wonder, because it didn't move. I didn't see it move. It was just consumed by the storm.
Right.
And so, unfortunately for me, that wild imagination from childhood and this default to logic I have are at war in my head.
Yeah.
So, because this is, again, I'm doing all this to satisfy my curiosity from childhood.
Yeah, well, come out to Arizona. We'll show you a bunch of stuff that you can't see really quite anywhere else, so join us out here.
Believe me, I'm gonna. Trust me, I'm gonna. I'm one of those. When I make my mind up about doing this documentary, when I travel to do it, I intend to do it fully.
Okay, great.
So, a couple of questions for you. In any of the cases you've come across, what is the strangest case you've come across so far?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll tell you a really good one. It was strange to begin with and surprising at the end. So there's a gentleman that lives up on the very north end of Phoenix where it turns into desert again. Okay, so it's a rural area. There's neighbors, but they're not close by. Okay, they're kind of spread out. And this guy has had built a little water hole in his backyard and put a game camera out there. And he wanted to, just get some footage of the javelina and, some of the stuff that's coming in at night. There's a lot of bobcat out there and javelina and, occasional deer. And, he just wanted to kind of see what's out there at night. So he's got the game cam going on every night. And he calls us up and he says, I've got some footage here that I can't explain this. I don't know what this is. I need you to come out and take a look. So I went out there with one of my field investigators, and she was supposed to be joining me tonight too. Her name is Marianne Robb, and she's awesome. She does a great job of field investigating because she's been a police officer for the last 34 years. She just retired about
at any point in time right now, if you want, I could add her at any point tonight.
Well, she had to go do some other stuff. She was going to join me, and all of a sudden something came up, and she needed to go tend to that. So she's not going to be on with us tonight.
Well,
maybe in the future,
future dates, because here in the future, everyone I'd spoken to, MUFON-wise, I'm going to coordinate something for all of us to have maybe in December, like an end of the year discussion as a whole.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, because I can host as many as needed. And I've had some interesting conversations, and I really think it'll be enjoyable.
Okay, well, that sounds like fun.
But
so let me tell you about this case. So Marianne and I go out and we watch, we sit out on the back porch of this gentleman and his laptop, and we're watching his footage of the game cam. And you see this orb that's coming straight at you, straight at the camera. And it's going up and over his roof, and it's doing some swooping movements, and it's coming straight toward the camera, and then it zooms up and over the camera. And it's fast. We had to move it down to slow-mo a little bit and really watch this thing maybe 7 or 8 times. And we're like, wow, that's some amazing stuff. It's like this craft, and it's coming straight at you, and then it just flies right over your head. And it was just amazing stuff. So we take this to our video analyst, who is also our chief investigator for the state. His name is Dennis Freremuth, and he rocks. He
shout out Dennis.
Job. Yeah, he does some great stuff. So he does a lot of good things for not only Arizona MUFON, but all of MUFON, because he's really good at what he does as far as photo and video analysis. So he takes a look at this footage, takes it back to his shop. He's got like mission control in his living room there. And he goes to work on analyzing this. And we found out that what this is a spider web on the breeze. And this thing, and the light is hitting it just right where there's a tiny drop of moisture on the spider web, and that's what's lighting up to look like the orb. And it is coming over the guy's roof of his house, and the light is catching that just right. So it looks like almost like a headlight on this thing, and it's coming straight for the camera, and then it goes right over the top of the camera and swoops on. So, we thought, oh my God, we've got, the best footage here. Look at this. We've got a craft, and it's almost like it's attacking, and it just looked so cool and so different from the beginning. But then with the proper analysis, we found out that this is a spider web on the breeze.
That would torture me.
Oh, it was great. It was so cool. We found this out, and then we look at it and we're like, oh my God, it is. Look at this. So that was, maybe 5 years ago. Now, since then, we've had a couple of cases that have come along and looked very similar. And now we know, that the probability of this is that it's a spider web. And then we can go about it with a different look, and we investigate it just a little differently. And we don't jump to conclusions right away. I mean, we definitely listen to the witness and hear their story, and we take their word on stuff, and then we go to work with the scientific tools and techniques that MUFON has in place, and we find out truly what this is. So that's just an example of a really cool case that came to a really cool conclusion. And then, we've seen some other stuff since then that's very similar. So there might be a lot of things out there across the country that are looking similar, and maybe someone has some footage of something like that. And now, folks, you might look at it a little differently and maybe go take this to a good video analyst and have it looked at in that regard.
Right. Yeah. If it were me and if I was the one that owned the footage, I would be distraught. Because
it'd be out there on YouTube, and that's what happens a lot of times when people send stuff into MUFON. They include a picture or a video on there.
Right.
But you also find out during the course of looking at this, they've already put it on YouTube. So it's out there, and they're convinced of what it is. Either that, or sometimes they are true hoaxers. There's people out there that have nothing better to do in life,
and they're good at it.
Try to fool MUFON or fool all kinds of people out there.
Yeah, there's some people.
Really great fun. It's so much fun when we find out what they've done. Like another case that this was a great hoax. This looked like the best craft coming down out of the clouds, lowering itself out of the clouds down to the ground, and it was whirling, and it was a cool saucer shape, and it just looked like something off of like Independence Day, okay? And we find out that what it was is the ceiling light fixture on the dining room.
Huh.
And yeah, but he had filmed it in such a way that you could not tell that at first until you really did some more filters on this and you really look and see what this is. And it was the light fixture. But man, that was a good UFO for a while there, you know.
Yeah.
But there's people out there that do stuff just like this. They just want to see maybe how good MUFON is, or they just want to see how many people they can fool.
It's fun. They have fun with you, you know.
It is. Yeah, we have fun with that too. You know, there's a whole bunch of this whole arena that, you know, it's serious stuff. But we do have a lot of fun with it, and you have to. If you can't laugh at certain parts of it, or laugh at yourself, or laugh at some of the stuff you're investigating, you just kind of shake your head and smile and like, this is some crazy stuff.
Yeah, you gotta have diversity in your mind, especially for this kind of subject. It's
That's what
tedious.
makes it enjoyable, sure. Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'm not. Again, anyone listening, if I ever find tangible, real evidence, and I plan to share, but I'm not sharing it right away. For one, I want to satisfy my curiosity. That's what got me into this. Two, I definitely got to have it analyzed, because I have this thing about me where I just can't, it keeps me up at night sometimes. I overthink things way too much. And I analyze and then I doubt what I'm analyzing. So I'm one of those. And to be an investigator for MUFON, I can only imagine the amount of information you guys take in per day.
Oh, it's a lot, but you know, it's that healthy sense of skepticism that is essential to have. You know, you can't believe everything that you hear from everyone all the time. You just can't. There's too much crazy stuff out there. You'll go crazy.
Yeah.
So to be a skeptic at first, and we're not out there to debunk stuff. Absolutely not. We're out there to find the truth and help you look at it. We're trying to fit pieces into this puzzle. And that's what it is. It's a giant puzzle. There's so many pieces out there, and it's going to all fit together one day. But, you know, you have to look at it as a skeptic at first and take in all of the details. You take in, especially the witness testimony. You know, you got to really be a good listener. You got to be a good partner in this investigation with the witness and help them through it, because these people have seen something that has literally rocked their world. Some people's heads feel like they're just going to blow off their shoulders. Some people think it's just, you know, some kind of a hoax to begin with. But, you know, when these people see something that is that far out and that far into the unknown, it does rock their world. So you have to have a lot of compassion. You have to listen, and then you put your tools to work, and it all comes out pretty cool in the end. Right.
Yeah. You know, there's an out there. I can't reference the name because I can't remember it off the top of my head. I've read so much in the last 5-6 months. There's one investigator that he was frightened because there was a person up north, and they were reporting that something was consistently coming and flying around where they were. And he went and investigated this on site for some time. And thereafter, he kept seeing these orbs everywhere he went. And it disturbed him so much so that he became more reclusive as a person. And, you know, at first you read that like, oh, that's nonsense. But then you think about it. For myself, if I saw one orb and I'm happy, and I remember being happy, I finally see a UFO. And then you see it again and again and again. And everywhere. I could see how that would set paranoia and cause some anguish.
Yeah, it would. It would. That's, you know, people are freaked by stuff that they don't understand. We all are.
Right. For you, nothing's, since you've been doing this, nothing's really frightened you or put you in a position to be like, where you were concerned, right?
You know, we're careful. I mean, if there was a downed craft out in the desert here, and I and, you know, my people here in the state that are members of the STAR team, which is MUFON's kind of crack rapid response team that goes out and looks at stuff, hopefully before the feds get out there, we're careful. So you go out there and you're wary, you're businesslike, you're wary, but if there might be a chance of some kind of radiation, say, or something like that out there, yeah, you don't go near it. Heck no. I'm not going near that. There's people that do that professionally. And yes, that's when we would call them in to do that. So there is scary stuff out there. I mean, you have to be careful. There might be a substance there that is, completely quote unquote alien to you.
Or just a virus, right? I mean, if it's biological, you got to be. That's the other thing too. If biology were to come here, that's another thing that led me to degrade my theory of them being robotic and/or like a really advanced robot, because you can't just come to some planet, breathe the air, and hang out and you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of challenge in that for us just to go anywhere for them, because you don't know what virus is there or how the atmosphere will treat you, or gravity. What if they're from a planet that's twice the size of here? And so there's a lot of factors there. But for me, on your team, I'd be a nightmare for you, because I'm that weirdo that I have to go see it. I got to go.
Running out there to see it. You'd be another Travis Walton. Yeah, going out there to see what's up there.
Probably right. Because I referenced this in a couple other shows, but as a kid, a bunch of friends and I were in this park late night. We all snuck out of our houses, all right, to go hang out at night. And they saw dark figures, or they claimed to see dark figures on the other side of this lake where the moon was shining. And I ran right to it. I had to go see. I didn't see anything, but I'm one of those. I'm the guy who dies in the movie every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to think of it as a missed opportunity. You don't want to have that happen. So there's certain things in life that if you have that opportunity and it might not ever happen again, yeah, you're probably going to go for it.
It's true.
So, yeah, I understand that.
And then, I remember that night, and even now, the reality was I ran out of a creature, hypothetically. And then there's that reality. I'm in Florida. I'm in the woods, and there's gators and snakes, and then the real fear sets in. Right.
There's things here that can really hurt you too.
Yeah. It's kind of like Australia, right? Everything there is trying to kill you.
Yeah, right. But Arizona too, everything bites or has a sticker on it or something, it's going to make you bleed. That's for sure.
So moving forward for you in your research, and I have to assume that when you guys get a case that has, some pretty big, like a strong case, you assemble a team to go, right?
Depending on the case, yeah.
Okay. So typically when there's someone experienced, like someone that's been visited or taken, those typically you go on your own, you just interview them.
We don't ever go on our own.
Okay.
We always have a person. Yeah, it's just good investigative skill. You don't go on your own. You always have someone there with you, not only for safety purposes, but to have a second set of ears and eyes and perception of things, because body language is a big thing. There's a lot to the whole interviewing process that it really matters. Okay, so if you have someone to catch some of the things that you might not catch during that oration, you want that, so you never go by yourself, and you just go prepared. You're going into someone's house a lot of times,
right?
But you don't know anything about this person. You don't know what might be lurking there. You don't know what their ulterior motives might be, and some people are just bad. There's some bad folks in the world, so it doesn't.
Yeah, I didn't consider that till just now. I didn't even think of that. It is dangerous. I mean,
it's you're putting yourself in a place that you're unfamiliar with, and usually the people are very sincere, though. I mean, really, for the most part, it's cool, but you do have to think about things a little bit. And there's been some places that we've pulled up in front of their house and just gone, whoa.
So what do
we want to do this? We want to just do it on the phone? No, we're here. Let's go in. Come on, let's go check it out. So yeah, we do that, and everything's worked out okay, so far. But we're careful, and there's a whole list of protocols. MUFON's a very professional organization. So.
I'm finding that the more I speak to MUFON members, and for anyone listening, it's what a profound effect it's had on me just speaking to MUFON. There's a lot of protocol
Yeah,
And
there it is.
it's very consistent across the board. I mean, I haven't referenced anyone I'd spoken to, and just I keep finding a very consistent protocol across the board.
Yeah, it's a great organization. I mean, I know some people have some problems with MUFON, but a lot of people I've known that have a problem with MUFON is because they don't like the disposition of the case that MUFON sends back to them.
Right.
As to what this is. You know, they know what they saw, and, you know, by God, that was a flying saucer. I know it was. So yeah, I can see that. People feel very strongly about their own convictions and their personal experiences that they've had. But MUFON does things really pretty well. There's a trick to this. And Marianne Robb and I, we actually gave a lecture a year ago to the International UFO Congress. And the title of that lecture was The Method of Our Madness. So we went through a lot of the protocols for, you know, some of the cases and what you do and what you don't do and what you look for and what you want to see and, you know, how you treat the people and how you interview them. And we actually have MUFON International. This will be our 4th year that we will be putting on the Field Investigator Boot Camp. So Phoenix MUFON puts that on for all of MUFON, so the worldwide MUFON. And we have people from all over the country, sometimes from out of the country, attend that. We open it up to just 40 participants, and it's right here in Mesa, Arizona. And it's coming up here on November 5th, 6th, and 7th. So we just got our capacity at 40 people today signed up, and we're really looking forward to that. What we do with that boot camp is we have classroom instruction that goes over all the protocols that MUFON sets forth for field investigations. We go through with a fine-tooth comb all of those interviewing techniques. And then, so we have classroom work, and in the afternoons we go out to the desert and we do forensic field work out in the desert for 2 afternoons. And that is led by the Navajo Rangers, John Dover and Stan Milford. And these guys are just awesome in what they do. And if people don't know really who the Navajo Rangers are, they are not the Navajo Nation police. They are a very, very high caliber, high echelon, along the lines of federal agents, but they work up on the Navajo Nation. And these 2 guys actually teach sniper school at the CIA.
Oh, wow.
They're very good at what they do. They're super educated. They're very well spoken. They're very, quiet. A lot of Native Americans are very reserved and very quiet and humble. And these guys are just like that, but they are a heck of a lot of fun. And they are just a plethora of information. And they really teach it well. So, and it's a great time out here because, you are out here in the Wild West. You're out in the wilds of Arizona. You're in the desert. And you've got 2 great Navajo guys teaching you this from a federal level of investigation. So it's really cool. I mean, we learn a lot. Now, I learn something every year we do this out there from these guys. So we really go through the tips and techniques of how to gather evidence, how to do it the right way. Don't screw up, and it's really some good stuff. And it's a very law enforcement type of thing that we do. And the field investigations that MUFON does are similar to the investigations that the police do. It's all very regimented, and it's a proven skill set that we teach. So it's a lot of fun. We do that boot camp, and I'm kind of gearing up for that now. That, along with our big camp out thing, I'm trying to get both of those things going. And but yeah, the boot camp's a blast. It's really fun, and we meet people, like I said, from all across the nation. And by the end of these 3 days, these people are all best friends. They've got each other's emails. They're on Facebook as friends together. They write back and forth. And we really become a pretty close-knit group. And it's just a lot of fun. We encourage, the fellowship of everyone doing this. And everyone gets a certificate of completion at the end. And we just really get to know everyone well. And
well, that's a good thing. That's a very reassuring thing to hear, because with that training, there's this misconception that people in MUFON are just anyone joins and, and you go out there and you find or you listen and they don't give it, again, everyone that's spoken to, they're very thorough in what they research and how they speak and what their conclusions are. So kudos, because that's remarkable, that should be more advertised than anything else, because that training you're talking about, that's pretty efficient.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we do it on a very grassroots level, so everyone's very comfortable with it. But what they learn, they're tested on this, and they don't come out of this boot camp as a field investigator. They still have to take the field investigator test. They have to pass it. They have to go through the training programs, and then they become a certified field investigator for MUFON. And that's really something to be proud of. I mean, not everyone can do this. There are people that cannot pass the test, and there's people that don't have the people skills to really do this, because there's a lot involved. There's just a whole level of things that we go through. And so it's great to know that the people that are certified have truly done that in a classroom setting and in a hands-on setting, and they're the people that we want out there representing us, the professionals.
So is there any pushback? All right, I guess what I should ask, how many cases do you guys go investigate where you're not called in? You just hear about it and you go to the site and you go to the where it happened and try to investigate, without per se someone of experience reaching out to you?
Well, there's a little bit of everything going on. And to be honest with you, the majority of our things are lights in the sky. It's really hard to determine what that is, right, unless you have the training and the list of things that you go through that MUFON gives to you. There's a whole list of agencies and people that we would call to investigate these things. And we just don't go out there and say, well, I don't think that's, anything. It's just it was a plane stacking up coming in for landing or something like that. So there really is a very regimented list of things that we go through. We don't just guess at things. So it's,
right,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys it's pretty proficient. I mean, it's very there's no question it's very professional. Again, every MUFON person I'd spoken to, podcast or outside of podcast, very professional.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thanks. I'm glad you found them that way. That's what we want.
Well, before we part ways, Stacey, the last thing I'll ask you for tonight is, what do you think? I do suck. I kind of push my agenda in my theory. Mm-hmm. What do you personally think the grays are?
Wow.
Again,
there's different grays.
Yeah,
So,
before you get into that, I understand that MUFON has, and I understand there's protocol, but I also understand that people have their own thoughts, right? And
sure.
I really like hearing their own thoughts on top of it.
Yeah, I'm not scared of that. Everyone's got their own thoughts, and that's what makes it the great world that we live in.
Right.
So the grays, the shorter ones, seem to be, the peons. They do the work. They do the busy work. It seems like they do have a level of scariness to them. They induce fear in people when they're around, or in humans, they induce fear. But they kind of do the busy work. And I don't think that they're the brains behind everything. But then you've got the taller species of gray that look like they're, more 5 or 6 feet tall, that people have reported, that seem like they are more of the teachers or the leaders or the supervisors, basically. As far as the small grays being some kind of a robotic thing like that, I think there's probably a really good chance that is true. It could be just a little engineering thing that does the busy work. I think that our people that have formed us from the dawn of time were always looking for some kind of a slave species anyway. So yeah, I think that the little grays probably aren't the ones that are really in charge. They're just more of the worker bees, and they could easily be some kind of AI.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this in previous podcasts too, because there's no distinction between them. They don't share emotion. They don't have emotional looks upon their face from everything I've heard. It would make sense. And as far as the taller ones, there's a lot of consistency in that story, because on podcasts, off podcasts, and the interviews I've conducted, I hear the same story a lot, and nobody knows each other. So this isn't like they secretly call one another, and so there's a lot of consistency there.
There's a lot of species, from what we hear, there's a lot of them out there. I mean, then you got the shorter grays, and then I think the slightly taller grays, and then you've got the tall whites that people have, described.
Yeah, what like Nordic? that what they're saying?
Charlie Hall reported that out in Nevada when he was working for the Army out there as a weather guy. He's got a great set of books there. If you've never read that, it's called Millennial Hospitality. And Charles Hall, I think there's 4 books in a set, and it's pretty interesting. And I've befriended Charlie Hall and his wife Marie and talked to them quite a bit. It's an amazing, very interesting thing that he tells. So if you haven't ever looked into that, please do. It's very interesting. He talks a lot about the tall whites and that they are an absolute species, and they're out there in the deserts of Nevada.
It's Charlie Hall, you said, yeah?
Yeah, Charles Hall, Hall.
Yeah. I'm going to definitely look that up.
It's called Millennial Hospitality. Very interesting stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of species out there. There's a lot of different things that could be going on, different characteristics, different agendas. And, you know, it's still a mystery. I mean, some people think they're completely benevolent. Other people think they're completely malevolent. It's a mixed bag right now.
Well, as far as the smaller grays, and again, whether they're AI or robotic or created from scratch, I mean, there's a lot of views in that. I think this mystery is going to go on for quite a while because, again, if we're on a long-term study, who knows? There's no time constraint.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not even sure. And so far, the one thing I do know that's consistent is no one really knows what they're studying. We just know they are.
Right.
That's it.
They're studying us. You know, a lot of people think they're just studying us, that they are devoid of emotion and souls, and perhaps they're studying us because they see that in us, they value that in us, they want to know how we tick. But then why do they take some of these people and hurt them and do experiments on them? You know, there's a lot of people that have complete fear and they are harmed.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look how we treat mice, you know, so.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, they could be testing things out, like how do they integrate here? I mean, how do they get to come to live on this planet? How can they blend in so they're not, you know, I'm sure they see the social injustice we have in this planet. They're not, you know, they're not oblivious to it. So they have to have.
I shudder to think what these off-world species might be thinking about us looking down on this planet going, oh my God, look at these people.
Well,
do they never learn? You know, it's pathetic, really, that
I say it a lot.
Are such a warlike species. We can't even get along with our own species, much less anything else. So it's really, we're flawed.
It shocks me in 2021 that race even exists anymore.
Yeah.
Our technology has far passed us by as far as evolution, right? Because we have not mentally evolved. We're not, maybe that's what they're going to study. When does this race of people mentally evolve to recognize one another as a species as opposed to an individual?
You know, because I mean, our scientists have pretty much determined that this planet has turned itself over 4 to 5 times. It has erased itself and started over again.
Yeah, I mean, I've read about that too.
Artifacts, you know, of this and even if you look at some of the petroglyphs and some of the very ancient drawings that are inside cave walls, and you look at this stuff that is very, 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 very old, and you're seeing these same shapes. You're seeing the shapes of the grays. They've been around a while.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that too.
Stuff like that, and you know, these people didn't know how else to describe it, but they knew how to draw it.
Yeah, there's other things too, like the pyramids being on every continent. They didn't have any way of communicating. Yeah, there's a lot of consistency. I see that too. That's hard for me to explain.
I love the ancient stuff. I mean, the ancient studies of everything here, that intrigues me greatly, you know, and so there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I mean, the thing that got me first interested in a lot of this subject was reading all this stuff, you know, the ancient technology stuff.
Right.
Graham Hancock.
I'm just getting into him. I'm just starting to follow Graham.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Fingerprints of God.
Yes, that's where I'm at now.
Read, and I was hooked after that. And then, you know, just so much of this stuff. David Hatcher Childress is a great researcher and an investigator, and he lives just, you know, an hour and a half away. We have him speak whenever we can. He actually will be speaking to us November 20th again. So I love his stuff because he's a hands-on guy. He's not an armchair researcher. He gets out there and he digs and he looks and he touches and he asks and he lives out there on the land and does his research. And
that's a good way to do it. That's the same way I am. I got to see it. I got to touch it. It's not good enough for me to hear about it. I got to go there, So.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, up and coming great researchers and investigators out there that are doing some cool stuff. And one of them that lives right here in Phoenix is James Keenan, Keenan. And he has been up there on Skinwalker Ranch. He's been on Blind Frog Ranch. He's got all kinds of really cool equipment. We've gone out in the field with them. We went up to this really cool place up north of here, almost to Flagstaff, called the Apache Death Cave. That was cool. We went in there and, took his equipment in there, and he's got some type of ground penetrating radar that goes way deeper than any GPR.
Oh, LiDAR.
People know about. And yeah.
Yeah, LiDAR.
He's got some cool stuff that he's coming up with, and he's one of those independent researchers that people need to really listen to. So again, his name is James Keenan. He's doing some great stuff, and you watch for him. I would be interested in talking to him. If you want to give him my information, I would love to talk to him. He'd love to talk to you too.
That's right up my alley.
I'll set you up. I will. I'll set you up.
Stacey, you're a wealth of resources.
Oh, well, thanks.
I'm definitely going to stay in contact. In closing tonight, in the future, again, I was telling you, I'm going to kind of put everything together, all the MUFON people I've spoken to, and try to have like one large end of the year podcast where we all kind of chat and go over whatever we've learned and kind of like a meet and greet.
Oh yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to be in on that. Just let me know when.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, Stacey, I thank you. You've been a pleasure, and I'm definitely I'm not looking for it. I know I'm going to speak to you more. I know I am. Good. I can tell.
I look forward to that.
So, I thank you again, Stacey.
Okay. Well, thank you, Adam. You have a great rest of your evening. Okay.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.